Hey everybody, I'm John Bohlinger with Premier Guitar, and we're at Glaser Instruments, and we're with Joe, and we're with Josh, and thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. This is great.
Yeah, this is great. I've been coming here to your shop for like 32 years in multiple locations, and I know everybody knows about your B benders. Everybody knows about Plek, everybody knows, I think, about the Music City Bridge, but why don't you just give a quick smattering of what you're doing here?
Well, we do repair. I started out building guitars, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
In the late 70s, building worn and torn Teles before they were relics. I built these very thin, I figured out that very thin finishes sound good. I built these very thin finished guitars, which were instantly reliced out. I built for 10 years or 15 years and then kind of got burnt out on sawdust and solder and people calling up wanting to know when their guitar would be ready, and went into repair. We do repair. We've been 7 of us, 8 of us doing repair, mostly for the locals, mostly for the studio guys, the artists, and the touring musicians, because there's a very gratifying feeling working for players, as you know, like you. It's very gratifying, and what's more, they're making the music that influences everybody else. So that's what we do. We subsequently started building software because we needed software for the shop to run on so it wouldn't be chaotic. And we've built different parts and stuff as we needed them. It's like, why are we using blah, blah, blah? It doesn't even work well. And so at a certain point, we started building things that would work well. And now we have handfuls of products that are mostly blue water stuff, meaning something where there wasn't a solution, and then tried to think it through as the best we could. It's in a number of them, people jumped in right away and started making their own version of the thing that we made after 60 years of not having anything like that. Right. That's the way the world works.
Yeah, Joe, you are this problem solver, like all these like age-old issues that, particularly with old guitars, it seems like you fix. And can we do a little deep dive into some of that stuff right now?
Sure. We've got a couple of new things actually that reflect our collective interest here. Okay. And let's go look at them.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Joe, so we're talking about you are the problem solver. Why don't you tell us about what you're solving right now?
Do you want to look at the Tele saddles?
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah.
You know, all these ideas that we've had have come from actual problems that musicians talk about, or things that bug me. Yeah. A lot of it really stuff that's been bugging me all these years. So a problem, somebody else said a long time ago, a problem is just an opportunity for a solution. Right. And the latest one has been some of the annoying things that we run into. We do a lot of these string benders on guitars. We do several a day.
You've done 4 for me, 5.
Wow. Okay.
I know, it's embarrassing.
Thank you for your business.
Yeah.
But one thing that points out is, because we receive all these guitars with all these different bridges and these special saddles and these intonated saddles, and the problems that remained were still the same problems that had always been there.
Right.
And it's things like intonation, it's strings sliding around, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so the Tele finally came to the point where we wanted to correct some of the Tele stuff. And because we had a history in bridges, I mean, it's called Music City Bridge because of one of these, I guess it was the original 52 Les Paul.
Mm-hmm. And the one you made for Urban? Yeah.
For Keith Urban.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Keith guy.
Yeah. He's a good one. Yeah.
He's working on it.
Yeah.
No, he had a 52 Les Paul, and the 52 Les Paul has a bar. The strings come over the top and go, and you can't get your hand down on the strings.
Unplayable. Yeah. Les Paul himself, I'm told, hated it.
Yeah. He said, "Are you guys kidding?" That's a quote, or at least it's been told as a quote. Anyway, so we did that, and this sort of solved that whole problem. It used the same trapeze and everything.
From as you look at it, it looks, unless you get right on it, looks like just the same thing until you're.
It looks like it belongs. It's in the style. Basically, it is intonated. It's got It's got sort of our lightning bolt pattern, which,
Yeah.
I mean, this is probably 2012 or something that this came out. And then we made, and then Tom Bukovac, who, if there's something to be unhappy about on a guitar, he came in one day and goes, man, you know what I hate? And he was objecting to the fact that on the 54 through 60, 60 or 61.
Got one right
Oh,
here.
you do.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you talk about?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you my experience. This is my 54 Les Paul, and it was fine if you played from here to here, and that's where it ended. And the guy before me had put a badass bridge. Do you remember? You remember those? And it just never got right.
They never sounded very good. What Gibson did, for inexplicable reason, on both the electrics and the acoustic, about that time they moved the treble side to where it was flat and the bass side was in the right place.
Yeah.
And if you put a regular bar on, it was at this radical angle.
Yeah.
And the strings came over at a strange cant.
Right.
And they weren't intonated in the first place. So sort of with Tom and Nick Druschel, who works here, does a lot of the drawing and the prototyping with us, and was one of the creators of this. Nick and Tom and I came up with this idea of extending the treble foot so that this could straighten out like it ought to be, like on a normal stop tailpiece. And we put an intonation line in. We made it a low profile so that you could get your action as low as you could possibly want it. And this was it's called the Stud Finder, or the nickname is the Bigfoot because it's got this big. But it was our kind of lead into the fact that if we solved something and people were happy about it, that they would buy them. It came as a big surprise.
Well, and there are literally thousands of these, or there were thousands of these unplayable, amazing guitars. And it's how great. I mean, because this is now like probably my best guitar.
And this, the material, every little bit matters. That we tested and tested and tested. I have a photograph somewhere. I think I showed it to you of Bukovac with a blindfold on, testing his guitars. Yeah. Because if you could see what was going on, there's a natural preference for the vintage bridge. Yeah. But if you can't see, you can start to focus on the sound.
Yeah.
And the pitch, the tuning, the intonation. And so we went back and forth over just dialing all that stuff in until it was exact, and came up with that. It's been very popular. People like it, and that's always what we're after.
Yeah, huge difference. Okay, so moving forward right now, you've now applied the same idea to the Tele.
Yeah, if only it was that quick. I mean, we started this project to make Tele saddles 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then, 20 samples later, and then working on the CNC machine and constantly refining the project, we ended up with what we call the Groove Master saddles. And I think you can speak more to it.
Well, you can see that they have little micro grooves across the saddle surface. You can hear it on my fingernail.
Oh yeah.
And the idea is that it keeps the strings from sliding side to side.
Great idea.
And it also kind of is cut away in front of them, so that sets the intonation. It's an offset. And in fact, the saddles have two sides. One, like the Bender. The Bender is convertible. You can flip it over and it'll work. Instead of as a B, it'll move over here as a G and is automatically intonated. So we wanted to apply that same concept.
Wow.
And so we made these saddles that not only have those grooves, but they've got an intonation line. And if they're not going to be the E and B where the B sits back, but they're going to be like the G and the D where the D sits for, it's the opposite. You just flip it over and you use that. And the coolest thing about it, as opposed to a lot of the intonated saddles where the string sits on a point and goes over, is that the solid contact of the string all the way up and across that groove makes a difference in the sound. And we had a guy in here this morning raving about how he'd taken a high quality brand, California made super cool saddles that I always liked. He'd taken them off and put these on, and he said that these sounded better. Better is always one person's opinion, but it's nice to hear that, man, I love these. The strings don't slide around. They don't sound as good, but we're going to use them anyway. I love to hear instead what he said. The strings don't sound they don't slide around, and it sounds great. It sounds much better than what I had on there.
That's what really struck me about the stud finder on that 54 is that not only was it in tune, but God, man, the resonance, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like you were not losing anything. Those strings were doing exactly what they should do.
Well, those details are worth. That's why, as Josh said, it took you 2 years, but.
Well, 2 years, but think about it. This is 74-year-old technology that basically has not changed. Remember, like you would just, back in the day, you just like take that barrel and arbitrarily bend it. And I'm thinking, how would they let that leave the shop for that long?
Well, in the beginning, they didn't bend them at all. They just said close.
Right.
Close was close enough.
Yeah, right.
And,
yeah.
But the fact is that people do want to feel like they're in tune. They want to feel intonated. And we knew what the formula for intonation was, but before we made a saddle, before we make anything here, we really look at something that somebody hasn't already solved. If they've already solved it, I'm not going to take one of these. I'm friends with all these people. Yeah. I'm not going to become competition to somebody that we're friends with. But if there's something that really is still not solved, like the string sliding around, just finding the right formula of the groove size and all the stuff took prototype after prototype, and then making them wasn't very simple, and figuring out how much height range.
Right.
And we did use American screws. They use 632 screws like the original ones.
Oh, cool.
Because people like American screws.
Yeah.
It's not because they're American. It's because it's a more solid thread. And obviously, if stuff is imported, the companies in those faraway nations, they just want to use the screws and the taps and the threading that they already have on hand.
Sure.
So we're pretty much always looking at what will work. If we were the customer, what would we pick up like an iPhone? What would we pick up and go, yeah, I like this.
Joe, how many over all your years of doing this? How many back in the early days? How many old guitars did you just jack up of your own, trying to reverse engineer all this stuff? Because I remember seeing downstairs, it's like an old Tele neck that you sawed through or something like that.
Well, it wasn't old at the time. I saw it open in the late 70s, and it was like 72 Tele neck.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what the truss rod was doing.
Right.
And so I took the most recent neck I could find that was laying around, and I sawed it right down the middle.
Yeah.
And because there was no Google, there was nobody who could tell you what a Fender truss rod looked like.
Yeah.
At the time, it was worth about $28. Now it would have been worth about $2,800 if I hadn't sawed it in half. But I didn't know from the very beginning. I was, because of Bill Hullett and some of the other people who mentored me, I learned very early not to mess around with vintage details. Don't flatten fingerboards. Don't respray maple necks when we do a refret. We almost never respray the maple fingerboard because you just can't do it and retain the vintageness of it.
I remember somebody coming in here wanting you to put a bender in an old Tele, and you said, I think it's like an old Paisley, and you're like, I would do that if your last name is Paisley. Because you did. Brad.
Brad came, when he got his deal, he invited me to lunch. It was really interesting, and he said he proposed putting a Bender in the Paisley, and it was a 68, which by that time was already the cutoff. Fender made really cool guitars up through 68.
Oh, great.
This was 67 or 68. And that's when that Brent Mason's was a 67, 68. After that, at the time at least, I didn't really care. Now I consider everything's cool up to about 74 or something.
Yeah.
I told him, I said, I'll do it, but you better go earn it so I don't look bad in the future.
Right.
And I think he's earned it.
And you totally stuck to it. Like you turned down these other people. And that's a good decision.
Money won't do it. They all use the same line. They all say, well, I'm the last guy that's ever going to own this guitar. And I go, you think you are.
Yeah.
None of us are the last person. There's a famous quote about this in artwork that nobody's the last person who's ever going to own a painting, and that that's assuming that Putin doesn't blow up the world, in which case whoever has it will be. But a lot of the things, You want to talk about this one?
I do, yeah. Well, I just want to mention too, Joe's too modest to mention this. Not to say you're modest, but he's too modest to mention this, which is all of this stuff. We got these powders that have become, you know, kind of a hit in repair shops. This jack, which a one-handed brace jack, conversion posts, the 3-string tree. I'm just like looking at the spread of things. All of these things have been converted from random ideas in Joe's mind into functional products that we can sell to the world. But Joe, I've been here for over a decade, and almost every single day I walk in and I see Joe on the milling machine, manually making, let's say, something like this, which is still made by hand out of a, you know, just a stock brass bar.
Wow.
Seeing him make this stuff. And then eventually we decided to make more and more of them and find people with faster CNC machines to make it. But the whole thing is like seeing Joe's concepts turn into real products has been an amazing treat over the years, and they continue to come.
Right.
I mean, when he has dreams, he should talk more about this maybe with somebody. He dreams about mechanical things.
Yeah, my dreams are mechanical.
Yeah.
even if it involves this woman, or, you know, somehow they're mechanical.
Yeah.
I don't envy it, but it's interesting.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like seeing the world through that world. But this is an example of that, which is there's a space control bridge on Gretches that allows you to set individual string spacing.
Oh,
And
wow.
this is another thing, collaboration between Joe and Bukovac. He comes in, he's like, man, we should make a replacement for this, this, and this. And so we made an intonated space control bridge that has a radius where you can still set the string spacing, and then each individual wheel is tailored to the string width.
Wow.
And so,
But it has that
solves all
same lightning bolt
That's
intonation
right.
thing, and it went
Man.
again
Yeah.
50 some odd years not in existence. And this did come out of Tom's head,
Wow.
but it's the same thing. It's like people put up with a non-intonatable, you know, with just a
Yeah.
roughly intonatable guitar, but why not make it better? You know.
Yeah, my Gretches have the original one, and yeah, they're funky. I didn't know you guys made this.
yeah, this is
Well, then I'm going to be visiting you about that.
yeah. Please come
Yeah,
through.
yeah.
This is relatively new. But yeah, it's a winner. I mean, you can see it's got the radius and the string spacing.
Yeah.
It does the thing. I mean, these are simple solutions to age-old problems,
Yeah.
but somebody had to do it.
About half of the stuff we make is for consumers, like the bridges, and the other half is for luthiers, as we're called.
Yeah.
But things like, you know, Gibson made that plastic bridge that was on acoustics that you know, they all shrunk and twisted and stuff. But,
Right.
But if you change them out, people are proud of having put ebony or rosewood bridges on these guitars, and it seems like
Was
an
this
upgrade.
like the Dove back in the
the 60s.
70s, late 60s?
60s, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But the sound changes.
Yeah.
And we were talking about vintage, you know, not messing with vintage. Some of the best records, I mean, the Beatles are a great example of this. The guitars used on these great Beatles records were not good sounding guitars,
Right.
but they made great sounding records. Because if you take a guitar and you give it this huge expansive frequency range, it doesn't fit into a track along with a bunch of other things with huge expansive frequency ranges. You know, so some of these guitars, like these Gibsons that had a fairly narrow, I mean, they didn't do it on purpose, but they got used. These guitars with plastic bridges and ceramic saddles got used because they've got a beautiful centered acoustic quality. And so as these plastic bridges failed, which they do because plastic shrinks over
Sure.
time, I got tired of the fact that we were replacing these with wood, and we'd look around for old ones on eBay or something. And so eventually we made them. And it's a little bit better than the original one, and it's a little stronger, but it's the same basic weight, same basic sound. And it just bolts on with the same 4 bolts that Gibson used, and
Wow.
away you go.
Oh, that's great.
But some things like this, for instance, this is a little nut gauge, but this is partly for the home user and partly for the professional shop, in that it has 4 different. It is a way of putting taking a guitar that may not even have strings on it. For instance, let's pull this one up.
Easy for you to say.
Especially before lunch.
Yeah.
But you can kind of just put it in the groove and pull it back, and if it clicks down, because it's got 8 thousandths clearance, 5 thousandths, 3 thousandths, and 0.
Wow.
And so you can absolutely dial in the nut height, whether you have strings on a
Wow.
guitar or not. And this is an incredibly common problem that people have
Oh, yeah.
with guitars, and the this great builder from the West Coast was in here the other day with his son, and they had this beautiful guitar they'd built together, and the nut was too high. That means if you play it in the first position, it's going to be sharp. It's going to feel really stiff, and people don't have any idea. I mean, here these two great builders, they were like, how do we know if it's the right height? So I'd heard that enough that I realized that you could do it with this simple tool, and you'd be absolutely correct. And
that's great, because up until then it's been kind of tweak and guess, and then retweak and guess,
or read something online and hope you're using the right method.
Yeah.
And about 2/3 of the people, the companies and the individuals, weren't even using they weren't even getting the right results. And the nut is critical. So a lot of stuff like that is driven by trying to figure out how do you lock in a solution for people who use something. In other words, if they use it, the solution is locked in. They don't have to have some 50 years of background.
Right.
Like some of us sad cases do.
Well, and okay, for instance, when I first heard about you is with the B Bender. And okay, I've got mine, one of mine here, this 69 thin line. Like,
gorgeous.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
Well, and thanks to you guys. But I had a Parsons White and just hacked all this wood out of it. And it really changed the Tele, changed everything about it.
Yep.
And this thing didn't change anything, only now I can, bend that B.
Well, it's non-invasive, which,
Yeah.
I mean, you can cut 2/3 of the wood away from a guitar. Maybe it'll sound better.
Yeah.
But most people don't bring us guitars and go, okay, I'm willing to take a chance.
Right.
Do something crazy, and
Yeah.
maybe I'll like it.
Yeah. Maybe I'll like it. Yeah. Well, I love this thing.
It's a whole weight neutral. I mean, it doesn't change anything about the guitar. And again, that was kind of the goal, was to make something that was easy. This lets somebody decide whether they want it as a B bender or a G bender. You just flip the saddle over.
Yeah. All these really pragmatic decisions.
Well, again, I'm trying to please the me in these other people out there who look at this stuff and go, yeah, but, so we don't just stop at yeah, but.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but look at this thing. So this
Very cool.
Yeah. So this is my favorite guitar. And this was the one you designed for Gibson.
Yeah.
The
Me and
Music
John
City
Alford.
Les Paul.
Yeah.
And this, you put it up there, and I'm not sure how you did it or what all was involved, but you managed to crack the code in putting it in a Les Paul and not having it like open heart surgery.
Well, Gibson wanted it here, and I had no objection to that. And they wanted to use these bridges. They were from something else, so it was not a very crazy difficult.
The Nighthawk. They must
Yeah,
have
they
had
had
old
Nighthawk
bridges.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Isn't that great? They had old bridges.
This is a cool guitar. I think they made 400 of these.
Right.
Only yours has a picture of your daughter on it.
Yeah. This has had a few changes to it, but
This looks great.
yeah, it's my favorite guitar.
It's iconic.
It's kind of like, there's some guitars are kind of like a stray puppy that comes up and licks your hand and then becomes your best friend for life. That's what this one's kind of like.
Well, people contact us often, wondering if we know where one of these is. But there are only 400, and they're. I mean, maybe someday Gibson will make a run like this again. But
Good idea, Gibson.
That's a John Bohlinger model. Would be a
Yeah,
great
right.
idea.
Yeah.
Now that you're
a lot of R&D has gone into it. But I love the fact you were able to you were able to make that work on this Gibson, and it was so streamlined and so efficient. Just great.
It's what you call problem solving. It's like I've done most of the design laying in bed, looking at the ceiling, and
Right.
it's like on the ceiling, and but it's not done until it's done.
Yeah.
And I kind of like a challenge. A lot of what we do here, people send us guitars for benders or something, or like Austin Crum just got a guitar that he wanted to put a B bender in it and the A, and have them both work at the same time. And he's doing crazy cool stuff with this.
Wow.
Crazy cool stuff. And it was challenging to do, so that when you pull them, they're different gauges, so that they would be in tune with each other.
Wow.
and that it could be adjustable in case he changed string gauges, because if you change string gauge, everything.
Yeah.
And then Danny Parks did one that was the B and the D string, and it would have been very easy to go, God, that's not what we do. It's not what we're gonna. And his are 2 independent pulls, the double bender. But I kind of like the idea of trying to solve a problem and making people happy. I really like that part.
Yeah.
You know, being able to say yes.
Yeah. Well, mission accomplished. Okay, so in addition to all this, all these analog tools, you're instrumental in the whole Plek thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So and now you're getting into software as well. Tell me about that. Tell me about that journey there. What's all going on with that?
Well, it seems like a big jump, but it's not.
Yeah.
For one thing, I came here from the Bay Area, from Silicon Valley environment. Went to college out there and had work out there, and I saw the whole software thing coming about. And I mean, I moved here in 1979. Yet by then, information was starting to be powerful. And so when the Plek came along,
where did you discover the Plek?
well, it's a Berlin, Germany-based company, and they had contacted.
I met one of those guys over here in the early, like the first one that was in this shop.
Mm-hmm. They used Guitar Player magazine because Premier Guitar wasn't around.
Yeah, that was the
thing.
Yeah,
Was it
absolutely.
in 2000? Was it around in 2000? 1999?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, so they would have used that instead.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
But they basically went through and found 10 or 15 names that they saw more than once. And that was like Roger Sadowski and me and Erlewine and Ned Steinberger and George Gruen and all these people. And they sent us this pamphlet that had the Plek laid out, only it looked like something getting ready to go to Mars.
Yeah.
And these wild, exaggerated 3D looking graphics and stuff. And I think everybody, and then they followed up with these calls. A guy from England called us all, and I think everybody said, yeah, I don't think so. Guitar is a master work that has to be done with the love of your hands and your magic touch, and I'm a magic guy. That's what everybody
sawdust
said.
On the floor, the
apron on.
Yeah,
apron.
apron
Can't
on.
forget the apron with the chisels tucked in nicely.
Right.
Yeah, and I've got my magic that nobody else understands.
Yeah,
So this was the answer. And I was the same way. I said, not in a million years.
No.
Contact me then.
Yeah.
But they brought it to the Summer NAMM show to try to sell it. It was a much earlier version of what the Plek is today, much earlier version. And because they needed a place to set it up and test it, and because I had this little evil guy on my shoulder going, let him set it up, make fun of it, this is going to be fun, Yeah. I let him, bring it here and set it up, and they scanned one of the guitars we had. It was that green Tele that's still downstairs, a guitar I had made, and the guy, Garrett Anka, the engineer, looked at the scan and he goes, this is good, and
well.
But I saw down at the end of the fingerboard these 3 places where there was clearly a problem that I didn't know it was there. I'd been looking. It wasn't even the 1,000th guitar I dressed. It wasn't even the 5,000th guitar I dressed, and yet there was still something that I couldn't find, and there it was on the screen, just clear as day. It was like tiny.
Undeniable.
The rest of it looked really good, the right relief curve and stuff, but undeniable problem. And that was an eye-opener for me. And so I used it again for those 3 days while he was here. And we looked at a lot of guitars. And despite having had our butts kissed over our fretwork, I started to see these things that had I known they were there, we wouldn't have sent it out with them.
Wow.
And this was the studio guys going, man, this plays great. But
they did.
Yeah,
I mean,
they did.
Yeah.
They did. But, there's always room for improvement. And this was powerful. And it did do the fret dressing. It had this little abrasive grinding wheel. But even if it had just been the ability to scan it, look at it, and see what was going on and know where the problem was, a human could fix that up.
Yeah.
But if you can't see it afterwards, you can't really see it. You don't know. You don't know for sure, and it's not unlike if it was X-ray, for instance. You might know that an arm is broken, but if you can't kind of set it, if it's complicated, and after all, this is 22 frets and all kinds of curves and stuff.
Right.
If you can't see that you've done a good job, you don't know if you've done a good job, and so you might not have done a good job. As great as it was when the Plek was first here, there was no way to save anything except the Plek series number. Job 1, job 2, job 3, Plek serial number 000. And I had this yellow pad I had to keep next to it with the customer name,
right,
the brand, the model.
Yeah.
Because to me, if you don't learn something from what you're doing, and if you can't go back and look it up later,
yeah,
you're wasting a huge opportunity.
Sure.
Because it saved the before scan in there, it saved the after scan, but there was no way to find it. So I started hammering them to make a database, and it took a while, it took a while to get that, and then that became really important because we could compare guitars to guitars. Something, if a player had one and they wanted the other one like it, or they liked something else better, if you can't find it, you're screwed.
Right.
So they made a database, and it became kind of clear that this was a major power. And I remember telling them, I said, we make a machine that does great work to frets, but we also have this data. We might be an information company more than we are even a tool.
Right.
And that sort of turned out to be true. But what it led to was looking at the shop and realizing that we were running our shop kind of in chaos like anybody. I mean, there were 7 guys writing stuff on these paper tickets. We ended up with a room full of paper tickets, literally like from here to there, there to there, floor to ceiling. Yeah. And if you had to go find something, if somebody called us and said, you guys refretted my guitar, what size fret wire did you use? It was 3 years ago, about. We could then, if we could find it, we could look up on the Plek and see exactly how high the frets started out and how high they ended. But if you couldn't find it, it didn't do you any good.
Yeah.
And did you replace the pickup? Did you do this? Did you do that? So in 2013, we started building a shop management software just for us.
It's essentially like a medical record for your instruments.
That's right.
Basic now.
Yeah.
Nobody would be without it now.
Wow.
But people, and I showed it to some of the other luthiers, and they were like, yeah, I just do it on a piece of paper. I know what I'm going to do today. And I go, well, how do you look back? How do you find anything? Oh, I don't ever need to look back. One guy even said to me, I said, if somebody comes back via a recurring customer and they come back and they want to compare 2 things, what do you do? He said, well, I don't have any recurring customers. Well, the example I used was the guy came in one day and said, on my acoustic, you guys put in a pickup a couple months ago, and you said if I didn't like it and I brought it back in a week, you'd swap me out. Because there's Fishman and Baggs and,
yeah,
16 brands, and we carry everything. We let the customer help, and we work with them. How do you play? Whose sound do you like? He said, I don't really like it. I said, well, that's fine. 2 months as opposed to 1 week. None of us are as quick as we think. I looked it up in our software, and it had been actually 2.5 years, and we had dressed the frets since then. We made a new nut. We'd done all this stuff. Yeah. And I said to him, well, actually, we put that pickup in 2.5 years ago. But if you don't like it, what can we do? How can we make you happy? History is incredibly important. And so we built this very comprehensive, it is end-to-end what a guitar shop does. You can track how long you work on different projects, every, job timing, job forwarding, task forwarding, all this stuff. And it helped us tremendously. And then people would come in and see this, other luthiers and stuff. So we started distributing it. And we made it a low-cost software, because when you're a 24-hour nonprofit like luthiers are, you don't want to spend a bunch of money on anything. And so now we have hundreds of customers who are our software customers, in companies like some big companies we know who use. Can we name any of them?
I think, yeah. I think about Santa Cruz, Novo, Elderly Instruments. Those are people who are.
And
People
then
like that.
and then some
Yeah.
and then some
good ones.
and then some big companies we can't name.
Yeah, for sure.
But they're running it in their repair shops or their production. We make a production version of it, a builder's version of it. And so we started distributing that. And behind that, we had to build a massive database that we call AXFAX, which was all the brands. There's like 5,000 brands, and then maybe 50,000 models or more than that.
Yeah, more than that.
God.
The thing is, a lot of this can seem abstract when we're talking about it, but in reality is, what do you need to do today, and what did you do yesterday, the day before, and so on, and then how do you project into the future? Because a big part of the work that Joe and I do, we go into manufacturers and look at their systems, and they can be a mess. Not just the way they're setting up guitars, but also the way that they're ordering parts, they're organizing labor, that they're hiring, firing, and inspiring, setting out standards for the work they do on the floor. And so we built a system like any other modern manufacturer would have, but tailored specifically for the musical instrument industry, so you can consistently make great guitars. And you can set your own standards. It's not about our standard. It allows total customization to the way you do things. But we've started working with folks, and eventually they start freaking out because they end up making, 30, 40% more guitars every month. And then they're like, well, do I have to start firing people because we're making too many guitars? It's like, it's an interesting industry, seeing people become efficient and transparent. And before, they were literally just passing pieces of paper from station to station.
Right.
And
well, and for repair shops too. Even small one-person repair shops use this because it's a way of knowing what you did, why, when, how, all the stuff you need to know. And it's one thing to know it at the moment, but you don't even know at the moment. I'm as guilty as anybody of this. I'll decide to do a job for somebody. I'm going to replace this pot on your guitar, and if I don't open the software and I don't make the job and start the job, I won't. When I'm done, I won't have any idea how much time I put into it, which is how much do you charge, or how much are you earning as well.
Right.
And so when I get done, I kind of look at the clock, and it's like, 2.5 hours have gone by, and it should have been a 45-minute job. I have no way of knowing how much of that time was I actually on the phone, or was I at lunch, or any of that stuff. So we were in total chaos. Or people would call on the phone. They'd go, I'm checking on my Strat that you guys were going to put frets and pickups in. Where's it at? And I'd go to whoever's staying next to me, go, where's
where's the Strat?
Where's Johnny B. Good Strat? And they're like, I don't know. And pretty soon all of us would be walking around the shop looking for this thing, and then trying to figure out what had we started it, where were we in the process, how much more time it would take. Now we just walk over the keyboard, and it's all there, it's all up to date, and it's all accurate, and and then you just tell them on the phone in 10 seconds. You're telling them how far you've gone, how much they've already spent. What are you waiting? Are you waiting on parts? Is there something that has some manufacturers back ordered on? It's all right there.
God, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, also, John, you'd still be waiting for those 4 vendors if we didn't have a system in place.
Yeah, right.
Seriously, things would just get lost.
Yeah.
And it becomes a total train wreck if you don't have systems in place. So we set it up here, and now we share it with others. But it's just like, light it up and knock her down.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, for sure.
And you've expanded this to personal guitar players, right?
Yeah.
Like for their own. Now tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, we made a Carfax for guitar collectors and for anybody who owns an instrument. So when you get repairs done, when you buy something, when you get an appraisal, all of this stuff is automatically saved to your instrument file. So when you leave Glaser Instruments and you get your repair receipt, rather than it just falling into the void like we were just talking about, it's permanently saved to your record. You can personally have access to. So when you go to sell something, or if you go get something checked out, or if you want to pass it on to your kids, you've got all this documentation.
Wow.
And it all happens automatically. And it's free.
And it's private.
GearCheck.com. No.
It's private. So for collectors, we work with a fair number of high-end collectors, as you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And many of them are player collectors, but they still have, you got more than one guitar.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've been doing this a while, so I have all this stuff, and shockingly, a lot of it's expensive now. It's worth a lot of money, and it was cheap when I got it, and it's a chaos. My stuff's everywhere, and I don't know where it is.
Yeah,
I don't know what
well,
I've done
who'd
to
you
it.
lend it to? /
Oh, yeah.
What work have you put? How much money do you have in this freaking thing?
Right.
Is it at your house? Is it at the studio? Is it,
Yeah.
That's right.
Is it, and where's the insurance thing? Is it in a drawer? Which drawer is it in? Where's the appraisal?
Right.
Where's the such and such? When did you actually get it? So this makes it easy it's collection management is what it is.
God, that's great.
And it makes it easy to do that. It makes it easy to take great photos and just, take them and add them to this file. And it's mobile, so you can be sitting next to somebody on a plane and they go, yeah, my son plays guitar. And you go, well,
Yeah.
you'd be off to the races.
Boy, and for resale, what a great tool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Especially with Provenance, because
That's right.
at some point, if you, don't, if you live the wild life you continue to live,
Yeah. Here's hoping.
Yeah.
somebody's going to inherit this guitar.
Yeah.
And its value, this guitar, I mean, honestly, that guitar has considerable value now because of the exposure it has. It's called Provenance.
Yeah.
You played it. You played it on these things.
Well, Joe, I don't know if that's a big deal or not, but that's kind of you to say.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, so we work with a lot of major players. Not
Everybody.
one of them. Well, there's two of them that would go, yeah, I played this. And now it's worth a lot. Most of them go, oh, no. But shucks. But the fact is that how you use something, how you take care of it, all that stuff adds to its value. What is original? Dion Edge did this painting. What else is there about this guitar? What videos did you play it on? If you had a place to keep all this stuff, if you could prove that it was real, And so one aspect of GearCheck is that it's got every piece of information you put in there gets a digital ledger assignment. It's like blockchain. So when you put a photo in, it says that happened February 2nd, 2023.
Wow.
And there's no question about it.
That's
it's
right.
inalterable.
God.
And it's private. Nobody else can see any of this stuff. But say you want to take this and send a photo or share this cool new guitar with a friend you have.
Yeah.
All you have to do is hit share, and you can say 3 hours. And they can look at it for 3 hours, or 3 days, or 3 months, and then it expires.
Wow.
And then if they go, our mutual friend Dave Goodwin has bought guitars from you.
Yeah.
You could share something with him, and then if he decides he has to have it, which is, no, you bought a guitar of his. He could have shared that with you. And then when you bought it, he could go down the list and opt in all the things he wanted you to have, like where he got it, the original appraisal, early pictures to prove that when he got it, it was in the condition, it was or wasn't, that he changed this or he didn't change that.
What a great idea. Because right now it's like archaeology.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is guesswork when you're trying to figure out a guitarist's history.
That's
Well,
right.
and going into the future, particularly that people are adept at touching stuff up and adept at making things go away. And in the future, buyers are going to want to know not what you'd like to think,
Right.
but what really happened. Jim Baggett, who's a great vintage dealer in Kansas, has this line. He goes, yeah, I met this. There's this vintage dealer who I asked him, well, is that original? Is that pick original? And the guy said, I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
That's wanting something to be is not the same thing as it being.
Right.
And so the sooner in your collection that you can start to lock things in, because time does go by, the better somebody 10 years from now or 25 years from now looking back, the better they can use that information to make your instrument worth what it really is worth.
Yeah.
Rather than going, I think, my dad, I think he kind of played guitar. I don't know when he got that one.
Yeah.
I mean, we've heard this a million times.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think we all saw the Border Control seizing $18 million worth of fake Gibsons
Right.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we know it's really apparent that fakes are getting better and better. And so if you can pin this down in history to be real and legit, you stand to have a collectible asset in the future. And if you can't, the whole industry could start to melt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To that end, one of the things that you don't have to use, but you can, is there are these little RFID tags. They're the size of a piece of rice. And they're in my both my dogs have them back here. and they were really developed for pets, and they were developed to last.
These little guys.
Wow.
It's tiny.
Yeah.
Tiny.
Eat it.
Yeah.
See how quickly you're digesting.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about it is that if you put it in a guitar, for instance, where we recommend, and a number of the companies we work with use it a lot of, we recommend putting a hole in at an angle back where the end pin is, and putting it in about that far, and then you put the end pin back in or the strap button. And you can even put a toothpick in there to hide that hole. Nobody would ever find it. The scanner only reads an area about the size of a grapefruit, but that thing has a serial number. All it has is a permanent serial number on it, and so you can take that serial number and put it in your GearCheck. And so all somebody has to do is scan this guitar, and that serial number comes up. And if you say that serial number was added to this guitar in December of 2024, then that proves that this actual thing was that guitar, not the copy, not the red violin thing,
Wow.
none of that stuff. And in the future, because people are getting better and better at faking this stuff, it matters. And you can find it, you can use this little wand. We sell this little wand. You could read through a box, through a case, on a shelf of guitars, but the read range isn't big enough to get the guitar next to it. So it's a really convenient way to absolutely anchor this stuff, because the reality is guitars are valuable.
Yeah. Wow. That is a great idea.
Yeah.
So GearCheck.
GearCheck.com.
And you can, and this is a real thing. This is
thing
happening
is
now.
live. You can go there, create an account in 2 minutes, and you're cooking.
I'm
Yeah.
going to do it.
Awesome.
You can put a gig worth of stuff in there for free, and then if you want to put more stuff in, because it does cost us something to keep people's data
Sure.
Stored for them.
Yeah.
We can't see it, nobody else can see it, but they can see it.
Yeah.
And they can share it with anybody they want. But it's free. We wanted the little guy basically to have every reason to do it. And the people who have these massive collections, they pass one gig at some point, and they do pay a fee for it. But we want it to be something that everybody could use.
Wow, that
helps
is
everybody.
great.
Yeah.
Because I think part of the appeal of vintage guitars is that there is there's a history to everything, and you can kind of feel it. There's like something you can feel, and it's all kind of guesswork about, you wonder what stories it's been through, and there you've got a record of it. God, that's great.
Last week, I got asked to go look at a collection of somebody who passed away recently, a rock icon who passed away recently. And me and one of the guys in his band, basically his right-hand man, went through the collection, about 100 guitars. And they were going to sell these for a foundation that supports a great cause. And what made them fully valuable was great photos,
Right.
and then a story. And so the guy the bandmate went through and went, oh yeah, he played this guitar. I remember he played this on such and such a show, and he really liked it. He bought this one because so and so had one. Every guitar had a story.
God, that's great.
And when you look at who his fans are, they're going to buy the guitar because he owned it, and they're going to get really excited because they'll be sitting at the dinner table with this thing on the wall going, well, that's the one he used and such and such. Well, because people care about this stuff.
Yeah.
They care about the story.
Yeah.
And then I looked at it and I said, okay, well, the pick guard, this isn't the original pick guard, but the rest of it's all, and so as of the date of when the pre-auction, there were photos that proved the story, that, anchored by RFID tags. So even if it went to the auction house and somebody went, well, I need a pick guard like that, and swapped it out, there'd be immutable proof that something had happened.
Wow.
There's a guy on YouTube who does these rig rundowns, and he goes through people's collections and talks to them about their guitars. He seems like a person who cares about this stuff, because it is about the story, how you came across the instrument, and the hell you've been through with the piece.
Yeah.
And this is an extension of that story.
God, that is great.
Yeah.
True.
So how long until this could also be like a tracker where you could, Is that going to happen someday?
It might happen someday, but these are passive.
Yeah.
So they don't need a battery. They don't need anything. Basically, the reader just sort of agitates them, and they have this visible serial number at that point. As far as trackers,
AirTags do a great job, man.
Yeah.
yeah,
I've got one in this.
Yeah, right. Oh, you do?
Yeah.
You have an AirTag in that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. You know what? Jared James Nichols told me about that.
Yeah.
Because he's always playing his old stuff, and that's what he does.
Yeah, this serves a different purpose, which is how do you solve the issue of being able to say that this is the guitar that we're talking about?
Right.
Because you can have two identical pieces, and who's to say which one the story applies to, right?
Right. Well, you hear those stories all the time, like I guess on Slash's one of his guitars that Gibson had just duplicated.
Right.
He's like, I can't tell.
That's right.
You know?
Well, how many Lucille's have you come across?
Yeah, right.
Over the last 20 years, you go into every little museum and there's another Lucille there. Which one's real?
Or you can slip that down in the case, and somewhere around here there was one of those old brown, Gibson cases, and the fact is that case has a value and should stay with the right guitar. And so if you can scan it and go, this case actually belongs with such and such, or this isn't the case that I had, or it just helps you locate anything.
God, that's great.
Or if you're like Billy Gibbons or somebody, and you've got 450 guitars and you want to find something quickly, you can just go down that whole row. You don't have to open the case. You don't even have to take it out of the box.
Yeah.
Wow.
So for tracking stuff and for knowing where it is, and there's no battery, so that'll still work in 1,000 years.
Yeah.
I got to do it. That's great.
We need to get a 12-pack and go spend an afternoon at your house.
Yeah.
Get it knocked out.
Yeah, I'm down.
It's the pictures. It's the photos. It's two things. It's the photos are important because you want to take 6 or 8 photos. Then if you want to add video later, here I am jamming with Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
You can, but the photos are good. The other thing is that it is nice to take the time to say, here's the guitar. This is what Gibson made. They originally made 400 of these. I had this painted by, and there's now AI that does a pretty good job. I mean, you can put that in as an audio file, but you can also use AI to transcribe it into a paragraph or something. And so it does take a little while to first create the stuff, but once it's there, it's there.
Time well spent.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
When we first talked about software, I didn't think this would be interesting, but this is really interesting. This is something I want. Yeah,
we can make it boring.
Yeah.
So there's 6,000 bits of
yeah.
But I've owned a couple of guitars with history.
Yeah.
And I've also had guitars come through here that had really important history that were unrecognized at first. And we would be looking at them, we'd go, you know what this is? Holy cow, do you know what this is? And guitars go in and out of that. They get known, the stories get known. I have Jerry Reed's old 56 Tele that I got one piece at a time from. But I remember that story, but I don't remember more of a story as time goes on.
Right.
And so if I don't anchor that in something, or even say when I'm done, when my girlfriend shoots me, I want this to go to the Country Music Hall of Fame. If I don't do that, it's going to come right back in here as an old Tele. People are going to look at it and go, well, looks like this has been taken. Well, people got somebody put that weird cutout underneath the pickguard. Jerry Reed.
Yeah.
But if they just say, oh, it's just an old Tele, but it's not original.
Yeah.
Then suddenly it's nothing. But if it has a history, suddenly it's an incredibly valuable guitar, and it's a part of our American history.
Wow, that's great.
Okay.
Okay. Well, hey.
Hey, come on.
Yeah. Well. On behalf of all guitar players, thank you. This is a great idea. Joe, Josh, this has been great. Thank you so much. I mean, we're longtime friends. I'm grateful just to know you, and I'm so glad that everybody out there gets to know you a little bit better now as well. Where can they find all this jazz?
Yeah, so all the parts and bridges are musiccitybridge.com. The software we were talking about is gearcheck.com. And then ShopFlow is our repair shop and manufacturer software.
Which is shopflow.co.
Shopflow.co.
.co.
That's right.
Okay.
Thanks for coming in here. You came in a couple of days ago and there was just a handful of people on a slow day after Thanksgiving. And seeing you roll in is like, okay, here's a member of the family. So it's so cool to
Yeah.
see you work in this capacity and also as a player in so many other ways. It's been really cool to see what you do.
Oh, that is
it's
so
a trip,
kind
man.
of you.
It's a real trip.
It's funny because I brought my buddy here, who's a budding luthier, and we came here. He's like, "Is this the right place?"
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I thought it would be different.
Yeah. I can sometimes feel a little superfluous standing here, but Joe's mind is endlessly interesting, and so I'm just going to make him feel embarrassed by saying it.
So to that though, I think that if you have a choice between a fancy looking place, where that's where your effort went,
Yeah, right.
or a place that's just like anybody else's home or their garage or their man cave or girl cave, but you're really putting all your energy into stuff. That's my preference. And it's the same thing with guitar. I always tell people about guitars. This guy came in yesterday. He had a little chip on the back of his otherwise brand new Brent Mason. It's a gray guitar. It's made to be beaten up.
Yeah.
Brent's guitar is beaten up.
Oh,
and I said, man, you're on your way. Just keep working on it. He goes, no, I want it perfect. I said, no. And you have two choices. You can spend your time thinking about that, or you can think about the licks.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're very practical. We're very much oriented to trying to make something that works, and put 100% of our energy into that.
Yeah. Well, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Y'all, till next time.
See you.
Thanks.